Well, I'm just happy that the UFC is finally recognizing the love and support that guy has from the fans, too. Because for whatever reason, they were so high on Conor McGregor and all these other people, they didn't see. One of the reasons why the Conor fight was so big was because of Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz is a fucking star. When they put his face on the screen for the Pettis fight, I mean, the arena erupted. It was chaos. They went nuts. I think he was a little overshadowed by his brother, too, because, you know, when your brother's a superstar, there's something about, I mean, and especially like his brother, when he was fighting in Strikeforce in particular, was one of the best fighters in the world. He was just amazing. And then, you know, like, especially like, you know, during like his title reign, like when he was at his peak, when he was fighting in Strikeforce. But for whatever reason, they just, you know, Nate just flew under the radar. Yeah, he didn't lose a beat. It was crazy. He looked as good as ever. It was amazing.
Good thing is, though, he seems to always be working. And that's what saved me when I was off. Like, just always, like, chipping away in the gym, you know. He's got, you know, him and his brother got their own schools, and they're always in there grappling, working out. So that's what saved him. If you take off 3 years of nothing, 2 years of nothing, a year of nothing, that's when you come back and you look like a totally different person.
Could not have gone any better for Nate Diaz. I mean, listen, credit goes to Nate Diaz for taking the fight against Tony Ferguson. It was a typical Nate Diaz fight. You know, he goes out there, it was a bit of a brawl. It wasn't the most crisp technical fight, but it was exciting. And that's all that matters. If you're a fan of mixed martial arts, that's what you want to see. Diaz was using the boxing to great effect. Diaz was starting to make those reads. He landed some beautiful right hooks. It was a 1-2, I think, as well in round 4 that started the beginning of the end. The exact same combination that he landed against Conor McGregor. Listen, and I love the antics from Nate Diaz as well. The psychological warfare. All right, granted, he might have been masking the fact that he was a bit tired. There's nothing wrong with that, by the way. The output from both men was through the roof. It was a highly entertaining fight. But when Diaz was walking over to the cage, when he just went for a little walk away, I think he went and had a chat with Dana White. You know, that is what exactly Anderson Silva used to do. That was because he's saying, this is my cage. I'm in control. I'm not worried. I'm not flustered. I'm not panicked by adrenaline. I'm doing whatever the fuck I want. I thought it was a great fight. Nate Diaz is already loved by the entire world in mixed martial arts, but what a way to go out. If we never see him in the UFC again, which I think we will, we're going to get to that in a minute, but if we never see him in the UFC again, what a fantastic way to go out. I mean, the man's had a tremendous career, so many fights in the UFC, a lot of records, a lot of post-fight bonuses, a lot of submissions. He's now ranked, he's had 10 submissions in the UFC, not an easy feat. Of course, Oliveira's #1 with 16, there's a few around at 11, and then there's a fair few at 10. So I think he's like joint third for submissions in the UFC, which is an amazing thing, an amazing accomplishment. Diaz deserves a lot of credit because he went for the guillotine, but then he had to switch up his grip. He had to alter the grip, pull it up to really get the pressure on it, a modified guillotine, and that's what Diaz does. I mean, he's always had fantastic jiu-jitsu, but to do that against Tony Ferguson, a man that is an accredited 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu black belt under Eddie Bravo. Tony Ferguson's a submission threat himself. He can go toe-to-toe and handle anyone on the ground, okay? And Nate Diaz went out there, beat him at his own game to a certain degree and choked him out. Tony, I think on the flip side as well, he'll deserve a lot of credit. You know, yes, of course, it's a loss.
They all showed up here to watch Nate Diaz in what many believe is his final fight in the UFC. And it was classic Nate Diaz. You know, I thought he looked okay. I thought he looked pretty good. You know, you always wonder how these guys that we have seen for so long are going to look in these fights where it looks like they're about done. And I thought Nate Diaz looked pretty good. I thought that if he didn't play around as much, he may have been able to get Tony Ferguson out of there earlier. Because every time he kind of put his foot to the gas, he was able to hurt Tony Ferguson. But, you know, Nate took a couple breaks, put his hands on the side of the octagon, chill. At one point, Tony Ferguson laid down in the middle of the octagon. Then when they ran towards him to beat him up, Tony popped up. It was odd. There were moments where Joe and I kind of sat looking at each other like, what's kind of going on? It was a good fight. But what never leaves a guy is his toughness. And Nate Diaz's toughness was on full display inside the octagon tonight because Tony Ferguson hurt him a lot with those inside leg kicks. And the moment the fight was over, you guys may not have saw it on TV, but when Nate went to leave the octagon, he was limping very bad because his leg was beat up, but his poker face is still there. I believe Nate Diaz is going to go up and fight Jake Paul, and rightfully so. It's a big money fight where he can go in and make a boatload of money Even though he makes a boatload of money here, he can go make a boatload of money and in a fight where he feels he can win in a singular skill set in terms of the boxing ring.
Nate's a fucking dog, though. There's those same shots I've hit a lot of people. I pulled him like a long chair. You literally got to kill that dude. I said in every when it wasn't a line, man, you got to kill that dude.
Boy, is he one tough motherfucker. He keeps on walking forward. He took every shot. I dropped him multiple times. He just keeps coming. His face was bust open, and he's still coming forward. You've got to respect that. You've got to respect Nate and the style of fighting that he brings. How can you not?